Hi, in today's video, I'm going to show you several different ways that you can beautifully embellish a wrapped present. I like to use these ideas when I'm wrapping a gift for a couple of reasons. First, it shows that you really did put time not into just deciding what to give someone and then purchasing it, but also in the presentation of the gift. And second, if you're on the ball enough to buy your presents early and get them wrapped, then you can use these beautifully wrapped gifts to adorn your own home and your holiday decorations. But before we get any further into the video, I do just want to take a minute to thank you for being here and watching this video. If you're not already subscribed, then I hope you'll consider subscribing so you can be sure to check out any of my future videos. And if you already have subscribed, then welcome back. Also, if you find this video helpful, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help me quite a bit here on YouTube. But now let's go ahead and jump into the first way. So here's my wrapped present that I'm going to be embellishing, and for each of the techniques that I show, I am starting with gifts that are already wrapped. I do have a video on how to wrap a present like a pro. It's a great video with a lot of detail and all the different materials that I use, techniques, so that you get a really crisp, sharp looking present, because that is really the foundation. So I'll be sure to link that video down in the description box below, and also you can find a link to it up here, but wait till the end of the video to jump over into that. So for this box, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very simple classic bow, the bow that takes the ribbon kind of from corner to corner. And I'm going to add a simple embellishment. I picked up some of these really pretty glittery snowflakes. They actually came in a 6-pack from Walmart for just a couple of bucks, and I'm going to add this to it. And for my ribbon, I'm just going to use a simple gossamer ribbon. This isn't edged. A lot of my ribbon will be wire edged, but because this is just going to be tying a simple bow, I don't need that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ribbon. Now I've already cut this, but it doesn't have to be cut first. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to find what I think is about the middle of the length of ribbon that I'm going to need. And if you've not done it before, you may not quite be sure, but practice and you'll figure it out, but you can adjust if you need to. And I'm going to take it and lay it across one corner, and I'm just going to hold it in place here, and then I'm going to flip the package and I'm going to run each side over the adjacent corners so that it comes around the adjacent corners. Then I'm going to put the box back down. And here, if you're not quite even with your two lengths of ribbon, you can kind of pull to be able to get that about even. So now I have my ribbon running corner and corner, and I'm just going to tie a quick knot. So now I have my knot, and I'm going to take my snowflake and just put it through one side there, and now I can just tie a simple bow. Now I just need to decide how long I want to make my loops. Once I get that done, make sure it's good and tight. And then I'm going to take my scissors and trim off the ends to the length that I want and also the shape that I want. So a really easy shape, of course, to do is just a simple angle with the longer edge on the outside of the bow, like that. Or I like to do fishtails as well. So fishtail, you just fold the ribbon in half, and starting at the bottom outside edge, you cut diagonally up so that you create the fishtail. Now obviously I want these to match, so I'm going to just go ahead and finish off that fishtail and turn it into just the simple diagonal. And there we have a very quick, easy way to beautifully adorn a wrapped present. Now the second way I'm going to show you is doubling up your wrapping paper. Is anybody else like me, and when you have either a wrapping paper that you really, really love, or maybe it's just a really expensive wrapping paper and you feel like you have to use every last bit, you keep every single scrap that there is. And I mean, what's the reality that you're gonna have very many presents that are small enough to wrap this little bit of scrap? But what you can do is use it as a second layer for a present that you've wrapped fully with something else, and then you can add this on top. It can create a beautiful layered up look when you don't have enough of that wrapping paper you love in order to do a full present. So for this one, what I did is I just have a very inexpensive solid color paper that coordinates with the color in the deer in this one. But you don't have to use a solid underneath. You could also do, say, a coordinating pattern, or really whatever you like. So the thing that's important here is that your scrap be perfectly straight on the edges. You're going to see all of the edges all the way around. So you want to make sure you don't have any jagged edges and that it is perfectly straight. That's where getting paper that has the grid on the back, so when you cut, you can cut in straight lines, is really, really helpful, because I don't have to recut this to make this straight. When I cut it to wrap the other gifts however many years ago in the first place, it was already straight. So for this is a long strip, so I can wrap it long ways across the present. Of course, if I didn't have enough length this way, I could do it this way, but because I have this length, this is what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to take double-sided tape, and I'm going to place that on one edge of this, and then making sure that I have the two ends on what is going to be the underneath of the present. I just taped that down so you can't see the tape, and then on the front it looks like this. So this already looks beautiful, but of course I'm going to embellish it further, so I am going to add a more traditional bow that runs around the present both lengthwise and horizontally, and add another embellishment. So I'll show you how I tie that bow. So once again, because this is a simple bow, I don't mind using a ribbon that doesn't have a wire edge. So this is just another similar red gossamer that will now help pull out the red of the antlers. And for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the length that I want for one loop and tail. So I'm guesstimating about that. And I'm going to put that on the top of the present and hold that in place in about the middle. Then I'm going to run this back behind and around so that it's coming back to the front. And you want to make sure that you don't twist the ribbon around so that it lays flat. And then when I get to the front of the present, I'm going to take the one end that I've been holding stationary, and I'm going to pull that down and kind of hold the bottom of the present. And I'm going to take the other long end that I've been using to wrap around, and now I'm going to come underneath and back around to the front. So now I've run the ribbon both vertically and horizontally along the present, but best of all, on the underneath, I don't have that knot that you sometimes see the more traditional way that people do it. So this will lay flat on the ground, plus it just looks a little better. Now I'm going to add another embellishment that I picked up, and I'm just going to tie another simple bow with this hanging from it. And here's the finished product for this one. I decided to fishtail these ends, and I have this hanging here, and I think this present really does look like I went to a lot of effort to put it together, even though there really wasn't anything very difficult about the way I did this. For my next way to adorn a present is going to be to create a handmade looped bow. And this really is probably easier than you think. And I'm going to put it on this present, which is this gorgeous birch wrapping paper that I got from Pier 1 a couple of years ago. And I'm going to take this burlap ribbon, and this is wire edged, and I'm going to create that looped bow. Now, it's important when you make a looped bow like what I'm about to make that you do have wire edged, and also that you have a lot of length, because this takes up a lot of ribbon. And so this is actually 45 feet long, so I'll be able to get lots and lots of bows out of this one. But you know, depending on how many loops and the size, you can easily need 5 or 10 yards in order to do it. So I'm going to make this pretty quickly. I do have a video where I show how to make looped bows in more detail, and I'll go ahead and link that if you want to watch this with more information, because it does take a little bit of time, and so I want to be able to get through this pretty quickly. But basically, this is what I want for my tail. This is about the size I want my loops to be. So I'm going to create my first loop, twist, second loop, and I'm pinching in between my fingers and my left hands, twist, and I'm going to repeat this to create probably about 8 loops total. So now I've got my 8 loops, and it looks a little bit like a mess. I'm gonna fluff it here in a minute, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut off this tail, and then I'm going to wire this with a twist tie, and then I'm going to take another piece of the burlap and run it lengthwise around the present, and then I'm going to tie it off, which is why you won't see that twist tie here. So now I've got ribbon running around the box, and I haven't tied it yet because I'm going to take my bow that I made. I'm going to place that in the center and take the tails of the ribbon going around the box. And I'm just going to tie that onto the present, pulling tight. And now I need to fluff my bow. And I also want to cut my ends. Once again, I'm going to do the fishtail, and I'm going to cut these a little bit shorter than they already are, just because the bow is already so big on the present. I don't want these to be wider or longer than the present itself. And here we have our beautiful handmade looped bow. And of course, this is beautiful on its own, but if, say, you run out of ribbon and you don't have as many loops to make it as fluffy as you want, or you just want to be a little bit extra, something else that you could do is take a pick, and so this is something that I feel like ties in really well with this present, and you can just slip this in wherever you think it needs a little more filling out, and then that's added some beautiful adornment. Something else you can use besides a pick, this I just picked up at Hobby Lobby, but I actually found these neat little pick-like things from Walmart that have the gator clips on them. Something else you could do, especially if the middle of the bow wasn't filled out how you liked, you could take something with the clip and actually add that in. Because it clips on, you can very easily put that wherever you think it needs to go. And once again, that just adds a little something extra to the present, or fills it out if it was looking a little bit skimpy. And the last technique that I'm going to show you today is a way to create a bow that almost looks a bit like a flower or like a poinsettia. And this is actually a technique that I found on YouTube from Rebecca Robeson, who has a channel called Robeson Design, and she's done tons of Christmas videos for many, many years, but I thought I would include here because it is one of my favorite ways to embellish a present. So I'm starting off with a present that already has the ribbon tied, and I just did it one way lengthwise around the present and just kind of have it waiting in the middle. And then once again, it's very important to use wire edged ribbon for this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut sections of ribbon into lengths that I'm going to tie in the middle of the present. So about half of this is going to be what actually creates the petals, if you will, of the flower. And this is great if you have a bunch of scraps of ribbon and just want to find a way to use that. That doesn't happen to be the case here, so I'm just going through and I'm cutting. And so I'm keeping them about the same length. So now I've cut about 7 of these, and then I will also be using the loops that are on the ribbon that I've already tied around the present. And if you do have any disparity in the length, I'm going to put those on the bottom. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through. Okay, so this one's a little bit longer than this one, so I'm going to put that one underneath. And I'm just going to line these up according to length with shortest on top. I mean, about, it's not super important. Then I do want to make sure that I have them centered so that the center of each ribbon is all in the same spot. I'm going to gather that up, and I'm going to take my present. I'm going to take those tails from the ribbon I've tied around, and I'm just going to tie that tightly around those. So basically right now what I've got is this. And now I'm going to take each of these and I'm going to cut the tails into them. Now I could have done this before I actually tied them on the present. I actually didn't think about that this time. That's typically what I do. But once again, I'm going to fishtail these because I think that gives the best look for this particular for this particular bow that we're doing, and I'll show you why in a minute. So now I just have to go through, and this takes a little bit of time just because you have to fishtail each one, and I don't want to lose any length off of the fishtails, although if you realize that you've got some too long, you could use this opportunity to do that. And I'm just going through, quickly cutting fishtails. And don't forget to cut the same fishtails in the ends that you used around the present. And now I've got all of those cut, and now comes the fun part, is I'm going to take those and just kind of pull them around, kind of spreading them out, and then also using this as an opportunity to kind of scrunch and fluff them. And there you wind up with something that very much resembles a flower, especially a poinsettia. And so the reason why you wanted those longest pieces on the bottom of that stack is because those are going to be what's at the bottom of the flower. And so if those petals, if you will, stick out a little bit more, then it does give it a little bit of a resemblance of a flower. Now you could of course adorn this with ornaments, stems, you know, any of the things that I was showing in some of the prior examples, but a lot of times I just think this is so beautiful on its own that I don't do anything else to it other than this. So there you have several ideas on ways that you can beautifully embellish wrapped presents, and that'll make the gift receiver think that you really did put a lot of effort into the present that you're giving them, or beautifully adorn your own home. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up, especially if you found it useful or you enjoyed it, and go ahead and hit that subscription button if you haven't already. Otherwise, I hope you have a very happy holiday season, and until next time, bye.